What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Williams. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I am joined by my friends here.
Ryan Murphy.
And I'm James Sheridan.
And here we are here to give you our real-time review, a spoiler real-time review of... Now, Ryan, who directed and wrote this and who starred in it?
Mortal Kombat is directed by Simon McQuoid. It stars Louis Tan, Jessica McNamee, Josh Lawson, Tadanobu Asano, Mikad Brooks, Ludi Lin, Shin Han, Joe Taslim, and Hiroyuki Sanada.
It's a pretty big cast. And there's only a few like known names in this one. There's quite a few unknowns, in which we'll get into some of those later. But like I said, guys, this is going to be a very heavy spoiler review. So if you have not seen it, go watch it. Come back, watch on HBO Max, go to the theater, whatever you prefer, and come back and join the conversation.
Now, preferably see it in theaters so that they get some of the cuts.
What's that?
If you can go see it in theaters, I recommend seeing it in theaters so that they get a little bit more of the cut.
Oh yeah, I saw it in theaters.
There's more of a cut in theaters.
Well, because they don't get like box office from HBO Max. They get the subscriptions, but they only get like a percentage of the subscriptions. Whereas, like, there's a little more. Maybe not. My understanding is that they get a little bit more of the box office than they do from HBO Max. HBO Max is just
I canceled my HBO Max subscription and it ends April 25th. So I just saw this film, but I got this film in before it ended. So I didn't pay an extra $8 for it. So they lost money on me. They didn't make money off me. You know, that's what kills me about the subscription thing, is that it's just like it doesn't seem like to be a very good business model, but whatever. Let's go ahead and get into the actual review of the film. So who wants to go first?
Well, hang on, guys. Before we get started, we have to let you guys know that this video is sponsored by B&B Missouri 6 Theaters. So we will have a brief promotion for them and be right back into the review. We'll be right back. B&B Missouri 6 is the premier theater to see a movie if you're in the Missouri area. The refreshments are delicious. The seats give you full reclining comfort, and the movie viewing experience is euphoric. But the main reason I wanted B&B to be my sponsor is their staff and the overall movie-going experience they provide. They're professional, friendly, inviting, and they truly have you leaving the theater feeling, as their motto goes, the magic of the movies. All right, guys, thank you so much for indulging me there. We have to give a shout out to them because they did take care of me and my friend last night. We went to go see Mortal Kombat, and they are our sponsors on this channel for movie reviews. If they're, it's in their theaters, so give them a visit at their local theaters here in the Midwest if you're in the area. Now we can get into Mortal Kombat. Now, since we're in spoiler heavy territory, we can just talk about whatever we feel like starting off. So, James, let's start off with you this time. What did you let's give us your score first, and then give us your reasons why.
I'm going to be a little bit generous on this one for a few reasons. One, because I am obviously biased on this one. Two, because I know Ryan's score is going to be really low. We've already had conversations sort of about this, but I grew up with Mortal Kombat. Like, I was the prime age group for Mortal Kombat when it came out. So I've always been like very into Mortal Kombat, and to me, it was such a fascinating universe because it was one of the first times I remember video games having story and mythology. And some of the fun incentive of the games was that you had to kind of like dig to find the mythology and to find these little tidbits. And I've always been really fascinated by this world and never entirely satisfied by any sort of depiction of it and like how deep they go into things. And I really love how much this movie pulls from that. It does make some missteps. I think the story really needed another draft, really needed a little bit more polish. And unfortunately, some of the characters kind of suffer a little bit. That said, you don't go to see Mortal Kombat really for that. You go to see it for the fights. And as far as the fights go, I'm going to give them a solid 9 out of 10 because these were fun. They were exciting. Something that's always been missing from the Mortal Kombat adaptations has been the sort of violent aspect of the games, which was like a staple of the games. It was how the games became famous. Was just how violent and gory they were. And that was part of the fun was, trying to figure out how to do fatalities and watch these people be dismembered. It was, a weird sort of safe, macabre sort of way to get out your sort of violent ambitions, I guess.
What would you give the score of the film overall?
A 7.
A 7. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, did I not say that off the top?
I don't think I heard at the beginning. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Okay. I think it's again, I think it needs a little bit more polish, a little bit more work. I think the photography is outstanding. I think a lot of the framing structure is a lot of fun. I know one of the complaints that's going to happen in this conversation is going to be, well, they didn't get to the tournament. We already had that movie, and only one of the games is a legitimate tournament. The rest of them are invasion. And I really think that there's more to the story to explore than just the tournament. That said, I really wish there was a prologue that explained the world and the tournament a little bit better, because there's actually a lot of backstory to that even the original movie didn't touch on. Like, they don't kind of talk about much that Shang Tsung originally was the champion. Like, he'd won 9 times in a row and then lost to Kung Lao. And then Goro became the new champion and won 9 times in a row. So we've actually had 2 swings at this. Mm-hmm. And Shang Tsung became so fed up that he just ended up invading Earth and like doing all these really shady things. But I think like there's a whole backstory with Edenia, the world that Katana comes from, the way it's conquered. I think that would have made a great sort of like setup and explainer to what the stakes are in this and why the villains are so dangerous in this, because I think it's kind of lost in the story a little bit. But again, I really think that you're going to this for the fights. You're going to see the violence. You're going to see it. And I think this, like, I missed this point earlier, but the earlier films were all aimed at sort of a more all ages audience. Mm-hmm. They were either PG or PG-13. I can't remember which.
PG-13.
But they really like sort of muddled the violence a little bit. Like, they were still like fight movies, but like it wasn't super gory. Whereas this one, like, it leans into the gore and it has fun with it. And
Definitely does.
And I think that's one of the like selling points, especially if you're a Mortal Kombat fan and you were one of those guys who, you know, was in the arcade practicing, trying to do fatalities to see, you know, someone ripping someone else's head off by its spine and whatnot. Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed this. I don't think it's perfect. And I think that you kind of need to go into it expecting it to not be perfect. Because unfortunately, I don't think people are going to take this story seriously enough that we're going to get a really good depiction. I think this is probably the best depiction we're going to get, which is kind of a bummer. I'm hoping for sequels because there's so much more to this world to explore, so much more backstory. But yeah, we'll get into more of that, I guess.
Yeah. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and go next? Because I feel like we all know you're not going to like this one.
Geez, I'm kind of waffling between a 3 and a 4 here. I guess I'll go ahead and give it a 4 out of 10. I just couldn't find myself caring about this film. I couldn't, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is a reboot. And you're right, the story already has been told. They've already told the story of going to the tournament. And in this film, it's a film all about getting ready to go to the tournament and sending assassins to kill people before they go to the tournament. And there's so many times that people did something I was just like, why didn't this happen before? Why didn't they do this before? And there's literally, the movie suffers from some of the same problems as Mortal Kombat Annihilation did. My main story issue with Annihilation was always like, there's this giant invasion where Outworld is taking over Earth. And in the end, the good guys just go and fight the 6 chief bad guys. Like, they don't have an army surrounding them. They don't have security. They just get into Mortal Kombat one-on-one fights. And this movie has the same problem. Like, he's trying to kill all these champions, and he's sending very individual people to do it. And most of our heroes get away, and then they decide the best way to win it is to go and take care of each of these assassins, which is like, it's not very efficient on Shang Tsung's part. And he says at the end, next time I will not send assassins, I will send armies. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, why didn't you do that before? Like, that's the same problem as Annihilation. And they're acting like killing these assassins, you know, going one-on-one of these fights is going to solve their problems. And it, of course it doesn't. And they never exit being in any sense of danger. I mean, there's no reason that at the end of the movie, he goes back to later. That doesn't go back to his life. Our main character, who I also don't care about. And that's a whole other thing, is why did they feel the need to add a whole new character? And that's, as a Mortal Kombat fan, I'm complaining, like, Why did they feel the need to add a whole new character when there's such a plethora of mythic characters in this story? They teased Johnny Cage at the end. Why the hell didn't they just make it Johnny Cage? Yeah, he goes back to the gym and gets ready to go on his trip to find Johnny Cage, and he's acting like the danger's passed, at least for now. And it hasn't passed even for now. Like, there's no reason why Shang Tsung wouldn't send another guy right after. I mean, the story beats just don't make sense. I don't understand so much. If I don't like, and Scorpion is gone for the whole movie, and then he shows back up towards the end. Why then?
There's a canon explanation for this, and I'll get to that.
But yeah. I mean, if it's not apparent in the film, I mean, like, but it's just, and there's other issues I have as a fan of the games. I'm sort of a lapsed fan, haven't done my research in quite a while, but from what I understand, Sub-Zero did not kill Scorpion's family. Scorpion was told
nope,
this.
That's canon. That is
there's
canon.
There's two different canons that you can go by. There's one where Sub-Zero actually does kill his family. There is one universe where that does happen. I believe it was
that may have been in the rebooted universe, because everything.
That
was the original story.
The original story. Well, I guess I'll have to go back do my.
Here, let me explain right here, just so it might help you. So in the original story, Sub-Zero does actually kill his family, and then Scorpion goes after revenge. In the rebooted story, actually, Quan Chi.
Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat mythology, Sub-Zero is the game that you can see Quan Chi actually framing Sub-Zero for killing Scorpion's family.
That's in the new. That's
Mortal Kombat mythologies is from the 90s. Like, we'll have to do all our research after this, and I don't know, but
I've recently done all of mine because I've been sucked into this world for so long, and I think the rebooted, it's reboot / continuation. Because at the end of Armageddon,
it's not a reboot because it's a new timeline.
That's what I mean.
The original timeline. So basically, what happened is Star Trek 09, the 09 Star Trek movie started this big trend of rebooting everything in continuity reboot, where his character goes back in time and starts shit over from scratch so they can tell new stories. So it's in continuity reboot is what I call it. So Star Trek did it first, and then Mortal Kombat did it, DC Comics did it, Marvel Comics did it.
I mean, Star Trek didn't do it first. There are plenty of films that did it long before Star Trek.
Okay, well, at any rate. But yeah, no, I didn't get why Scorpion just only appeared when he did. I didn't get it's just so much in the movie
because he was being tormented in hell.
But so also he needed the from what I've gathered, and I think it's still convoluted, and it still is not as good as it could have been. Because I believe you're right, James. It definitely needed. I feel like this was a rough draft of a script.
Yeah,
and needed a lot more work. Because what they alluded to is that he needed to be unleashed from the nether realm by the blood of his kin.
Yep.
So when his blood got onto the spear of Scorpion's
kunai,
the kunai, that's when he was able to come through from the nether realm. Like
Where
I said,
was that?
I'm agreeing with you there, Ryan.
They explained it.
That it explains it.
Raiden explained it
in a very good way. Does that make sense? Like, there should have been a little more explanation. Like, I was a firm believer when I heard this was only gonna be an hour and 50 minutes, technically an hour and 45 when you take the preview or the end credits. I was like, if you're having these many, I always get fearful that I feel like if you're going to have this big a cast, you need like a 2 hour and 15-minute film. Easy to have a lot more character development, a lot more. A prologue would have been nice for Mortal Kombat to kind of show lineage of Kung Lao, get some stuff there. And even, I would say even having Katana in there would have been really great. And I didn't mind Cole Young. I just didn't like the actor necessarily because he just wasn't a good actor. Like he's what's your score out of 10, Josh? I'm sorry. I'm still gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I'm still gonna give it a positive score because I had one hell of a fun fucking time.
I mean, here's the thing: is ultimately, I think some of these problems I even had with like Spider-Man: Homecoming, which is that because they're rebooting it, and because the first original film, the film that first adapted it, Spider-Man 02 or Mortal Kombat 95. The first film adapted was a very straightforward adaptation, taking the big aspects of the game, the tournament, right? The Shang Tsung and Liu Kang winning and all that sort of stuff. Because someone already did that and because they're rebooting it, they feel the need to avoid doing that, but then they don't touch on some of the big concepts. Like, we're not talking about Spider-Man here, but so we won't get into that.
They say towards the end, we'll give them the tournament that they wanted. The thing with Mortal Kombat is the tournament is there for a purpose. The tournament is there to prevent Outworld specifically, but other people from invading. They have to earn it, and they have to do it through winning 10 straight championships. But they have one championship per generation, so roughly every 25 years. Mortal Kombat has been won 9 straight times by Outworld. They say that in the little text teaser. I hate text teasers. Make it a visual prologue. Stop with the text teasers. Star Wars being the exception because they were doing a thing based on Flash Gordon, but that's a whole other bag. But like doing the actual strict tournament itself, I don't think would be all that much fun because we've already seen that done. The majority of Mortal Kombat is about invasion. It's about Outworld coming to take over Earth, and all of these combatants, for lack of a better term, they call them champions in this version, which I'm fine with.
Or chosen ones, not just
chosen. Yeah, well, there's specifically one chosen one, and then I love the whole thing with the marks on them and how it's sort of like an earned title kind of thing because you defeat the other champion and then you get the mark, like kind of proving yourself in a sort of like spiritual combat sense. But they do end up getting a tournament style ending because we have the one-on-one fights, especially at certain locations, like the one with Jax where they're on that bridge over the spikes that you recognize from Mortal Kombat.
That was pretty cool.
That was straight out of Mortal Kombat 2, and I'm like, I love that. Oh, that was sorry.
But yeah, so I'm with you there, and like there's plenty of other spots like that where I was like, oh my god, I know what that is. Oh my god, I know what that is. But at the same time, in the context of the film, like when he shows it there, us as fans know it, of course. Now, I don't mind it because I know, but I will guarantee you, like they'll just be like a fan just going to see it, like, what is this place? Like, I wish there was still a little more help towards the non-fan, like, or even for fans who are us, like, give us more meaning and context and just like, oh, it's a cool, like, for me, what I feel like they did for some cool Easter eggs was help maybe further down the line. Like, for instance, we're in the temple and you saw Shinnok's amulet. Like that to me, I was like, oh, I know what that is. And like,
and Katana's fan blade.
Yeah, that
and
too.
There's
like
statues of Shao Kahn and
like,
there's lots of little
like those kind of things I'm fine with because to me that shows emphasis of this could be something moving forward. Because Shinnok's amulet is one of the big key parts in Mortal Kombat 10 and part in Mortal Kombat 11, the video games and the stories. But other than that, like the problems, I want to get to stuff. I want to save the stuff I loved at the end. So I want to get the bad stuff out of the way now. The stuff I had, the biggest things I had, because a lot of stuff you guys are bringing up, the stuff, the gripes, I just kind of let them go. The things that really stood out to me that were most is I didn't like the editing. I felt like there was way too many action cut scenes. Like I feel like, and some people are like, well, maybe it's just an homage to 90s editing. That's still 90s editing action is not good. There's a reason
there's a cut in this movie that I was so shocked by that I marked down in my mind. I'm forgetting it a little bit. I think it was 54 or 58 minutes in, but I marked it in my mind at the time to bring up here. There, and I'll put it. I'll put it in the edit of the video. Like there's a cut where like I think it's just Kano getting up, and they go Kano getting up, and then cut to someone else, and like it's such a fast cut. It's like sometimes Josh and I will make a mistake editing, and we'll have a clip, and then we'll cut, and then there'll be a little extra section on the end of it that we forgot to cut off. And it feels like one of those. It feels like someone accidentally spliced in one frame, like they're trying to be subliminal. You'll see it when we get the video up, but it's an insanely bad cut. Like, who edited this?
My issue with the editing wasn't necessarily little things like that. Like stuff like that gets missed all the time. I don't have a problem with that. Little continuity errors never bother me. My issue is with the way they frame the fights, because there's a sort of methodology to editing where you try to like sort of hyper edit, where you're cutting a lot to try and build the action, which is fine for stuff like chase scenes or like stuff where you need it to be hyperkinetic. But for a fight scene, you kind of want to just let your camera roll and let the action play out itself. Like if you see really good kung fu films, really good kung fu action scenes, because they're kind of the gold standard in my mind for hand-to-hand combat, they will just let the camera roll. Like think of the Daredevil fight scene in the hallway, where it's just a one take shot and it's just constantly going. And you're never really bored because there's always sort of something going on, or you're just kind of shocked at like how like worn out these characters are. Or like I think it's Old Boy has like a really great hallway sequence like that where it's just one long take kind of thing.
John Wick does it as well in their films, in their action.
Yeah.
films.
And I'm not saying it has to be one take. I'm just saying let the action kind of breathe out a little bit and let the action happen. And like the cutting back and forth is fine if you're cutting to like someone throws a kunai and you're cutting to hitting the tree or something, or hitting someone's chest. That's fine. But when it's like, fisticuffs, hands, hitting, all that stuff, we need to see that play out. And I feel like there was too many moments where they were too busy trying to cut stuff to build the kinetic feeling of it and not letting things just play out. That said, I still love the fight scenes. I still thought they were great. My only complaint with the fight scenes was the opening one. I hate fake blood. I hate CGI blood. Stop fucking using CGI blood. And there was a couple of shots where like Scorpion is fighting a bunch of ninja from the Lin Kuei tribe, who are like taking over his compound and whatnot. And there's a few shots where I don't know why they did it this way, but like they had to green screen the guy into the shot and comp him into the shot. And the matching doesn't quite work. When he hits the ground, it doesn't quite work. Like the shadows don't play off well. The color matching doesn't work. And it really stands out. And that's more of a effects thing than it is an action thing. But it's like, that stuff really hurt it in places for me. That said, you get to moments like the big fight scene at the end, and like there might be mistakes in there. I was just so invested at that point, I didn't care. That scene was just outstanding. The one between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and Cole. I love the fact that it's framed with fighting at his gym, because we start his adventure in the gym and show his faults and his problems, and how he doesn't believe in himself, and now he's holding his own against who the movie is basically making to be like the ultimate sort of combatant villain in this, that being Sub-Zero. And beyond Sub-Zero is a rather frightening character.
Awesome Sub-Zero.
And just that entire scene, the buildup of the characters, the buildup of their personal stories, I don't know, it had me 200%. And to me, that's why you watch this movie, is for that scene. And like, I can't praise the action enough, and the editing problems aside, I still think that it kind of like comes or steps above all of that. And just, yeah, you guys were saying you don't have investment.
I feel the same way, but we
characters.
have to be fair to the filmmaking process that aesthetically it doesn't look good. Like we've been so spoiled with stuff like John Wick and Daredevil, where let these fight scenes just play out and you get to almost bask in its glory, essentially, of how great it looks. And I feel like the 90s editing cutscenes they tried to do just didn't work for me. So like I said, it was a problem that I just, every time it happened, I was like getting frustrated, because I was sitting there, I'm like, oh, come on, I want to see more of the action. I don't know. And then the other issue I found myself having, I had it in my head, now I lost it. I had it in my head, now I lost it. But the other parts is, there was a couple characters where I felt like they weren't good at, Cole Young, the guy, Louis Tan. I didn't mind the character, and I didn't mind even structurally that he had his lineage involving in Mortal Kombat is through Scorpion. I'm fine with that. I didn't mind that at all. I wish he was more maybe of a side character and have that still be Liu Kang. But the other the character, like there's just some characters, like the guy who played Shang Tsung, who I know mostly from Dark Knight. I didn't buy him.
No, and it's hilarious when you compare him to Hiroyuki Tagawa, and the charisma of that villain in Mortal Kombat, and how great a villain, whatever your problems are with that film, like that's one of my favorite villains of all time. And just
Shang Tsung shouldn't be charismatic though.
Oh my gosh.
No, he shouldn't. Shang Tsung should be like the Emperor in Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, where he's an unseen force. That was his entire role in the first game, was you don't know who this villain is. You just know that you have to fight your next combatant, kind of thing. He should be a force that's sort of ethereal and like a threat, but not on screen all the time. And as much as I love the original role and just how much he chews the scenery, he's so much fun in that role, that character shouldn't be nearly as present as he is. That's my
But-
problem with this movie, is that they have him too much. And
Yeah,
it should
but
be
still,
his
same time-
generals doing all the work.
Same time, James, none of us can deny the original Shang Tsung from the film is just such a perfect. He's so perfect that they included him in Mortal Kombat 11 in the storyline.
And in the
it
the
still
online
works.
series that they did.
Yeah, and it still works. But at the same time, you didn't like. They could have even had him be an old Shang Tsung. Just give him a wig, put some whiskers on him, like from the.
I wouldn't have
original,
had a
it'd be
problem
fine.
with him coming back, but I do think that Shang Tsung should not be nearly as present in the series as he is. Like,
That's fine. But at the same time,
or
for me,
save
like, I
him
just
till
didn't-
later
The,
kind of
the
thing.
reason I didn't like him is not that he's a bad actor. I just didn't sense the villainy. I didn't sense the evil presence that someone like the original character actor can. But even then, I've like in my head, I'm like, who would be better at this role? And Ken Watanabe would have been a perfect Shang Tsung. He would have been so fucking good as Shang Tsung. I feel like they missed that mark to have him be such. Because there's so many other people, and even like the guy who played the other the actress who played Sonya Blade.
Yeah,
didn't
Bridget
do it
Wilson.
for me.
She's
Her acting skills.
No, not Bridget, the new one he's talking about.
yeah.
The
But
new
Bridget
one-
Wilson is Sonya Blade as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, no, it's I thought she did a fine job. The new one.
But this new one, she did okay. She just, it was like I said, there's a lot of wooden spots in there for her dialogue. And then last
Interesting-
person, which I love him as an actor, he just didn't fit it for me personally, was Ludi Lin, who played Liu Kang. Now, Liu Kang typically is supposed to be a shorter character, but he's supposed to be the most skilled character. And I just didn't feel like he had, like when he faced Cabal, I was like, he shouldn't be having this much difficulty with Cabal. Like,
See, I like that. That was one of the things I did like, because Liu Kang is actually my favorite combatant to use.
Same.
But I like that I like his growth as a character from being someone who has a lot of doubt about his ability, despite the fact like he's very clearly skilled. But when you put him next to Kung Lao, who is a far superior fighter, a lot more confident, he feels weak. And I like that they gave him a bit of an arc to go on. I don't think that he should be the lead, because I think the lead should be a naive character that you have to bring in kind of blind into this. And I think that Liu Kang traditionally knows too much about what's going on to be a blind character coming into this. So
And
that's why I
like I
like
said,
that they
that
did
part
Cole
I'm
Young.
fine
What I
with.
think they should have done with Cole Young is make him the new Kung Lao.
Liu Kang, you mean?
No, make him the new Kung
Oh,
Lao.
Cole Young? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because Kung Lao unfortunately is kind of wasted in this.
Yeah.
I like him as a
he
character.
did a great job.
He did
Guy
a
who
great
played
job,
Kung
but
Lao
I
is
think
awesome.
that what they should have done was use him as the original Kung Lao and use Cole Young as the descendant of Kung Lao instead of the descendant of Scorpion.
Mhm.
And that's his lineage into all of this, is
That
that
would've been
he is
cool.
he is the reincarnation of Kung Lao, because that is actually canon, that we have two different Kung Laos
Yeah.
fighting. We have the modern day one and the original one. But they needed someone to come into this cold to be able to explain everything to him and to kind of slowly reveal how everything kind of works, because you need to explain things to the audience. When you're explaining something to a character that knows all of this stuff, it comes off as rather forced and very sort of expository. Whereas it's, to go back to an old favorite of mine, that's why you bring in Winston into Ghostbusters, is to be able to explain the science to him. Seriously, that's why he comes in when he does, is because you've removed Dana Barrett from the role that she's playing, and you still need someone to explain everything to, because these three guys are not going to sit there explaining it to each other. They already know it, but you need to explain it to the audience. So you need someone to talk to, and you need someone who's not going to know this stuff. And that's why Cole is the character that he is because they need to be able to talk to somebody and tell them, this is the tournament. I've been researching this all my life. We're trying to find, what these symbols mean, and, how to get to this tournament and how to find Lord Raiden's temple and all this stuff.
And I guess
So
we
need to go on the journey with him.
The structure and way they told the story, which was like fight scene exposition. It was very cookie cutter. I felt like there was such a better way to do this. Like I said, that's why I feel like the screenplay was just a rough draft. I feel like there could have been so much more ways to handle this. And I'm okay with Johnny Cage not being in initially. He can come in later. That way it gives you time to keep the characters going. And I really would have wished Sonya would have had the mark, and so did Kano. But at the same time, I wanted that lineage of revealing that she's been hunting Kano forever, and Kano's been working with Shang Tsung this whole time to help destroy Earthrealm, kind of what they did originally. I just didn't want to have it where he had it, she didn't, and then he has to kill her to do so. Still, it's cool to watch, It was cool, and the action scenes between them were great. And I actually love the idea of the arcana, or what they call it. That way, it gives people their power.
Yeah,
it was
actually an explanation as to why people have superpowers.
Exactly, it gets a good explanation. It really is, and I liked it. And I thought it was very cunning way to do that. So, and other than just saying, oh, some people have it, it's like, oh, okay, I guess some people have it and some don't. But
well, and that's but you're right in that. And there is some. You went from positive to negative. I go from negative to positive. There is some fun stuff. There's some nice little references to the games, like the sweeping scene where he does the sweep kick scene, where he just sweep kicks him and sweep kicks him again and says, "Is that your only move?" And that's kind of in reference to the game where you can just do that to certain opponents, and every time
someone would just cheese the one move.
Yeah.
But the other, well, I think that was pretty much the one big reference to the game. And the best line in the movie that almost made the whole movie work for me was Jax after he kills Reiko, just going, "Yeah, these motherfuckers work."
Yeah.
I didn't understand Jax's arms. I didn't understand the logic behind it. Again, going back to, I didn't understand why some things happen at some points, they didn't happen at other points. Why he starts growing his arms and they grow 10 times their size, and
because that's his arcana.
Well, there you go. And there's one part that just I wanted to be a great moment for me. I think I was the target audience in this kind of thing, because as we've talked about, I love, especially in reboots, when someone's dealing with a sort of a classic older franchise, they're trying to breathe new life into it, when a classic music theme comes back at a big moment. And we talked about this. I know Joss Whedon's Justice League is not the most popular thing right now, but I did love that moment when the Batman theme plays. I love in Godzilla King of the Monsters, another movie I wasn't crazy about, but almost the entire thing was worth the price of admission. When he rises out of the water and Akira Ifukube's theme plays. I adore stuff like that. And there's a moment in this movie where Scorpion finally shows up and dun 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 dun, and I was like, I'm sorry.
I love that. I loved it so much.
If it worked for you, that's great. If that was a moment for you, like the Godzilla moment was for me, then cool beans.
And I really wish they would have gone the route of, like, when Sub-Zero when Bihan killed him in the beginning, Scorpion and his whole family, I was like, ooh, are they gonna do Quan Chi? Like, I really wanted that arc, because I really love the idea that they're still rival clans, but Bihan and Scorpions, they had sort of an understanding between one another in the lore. But then, Scorpion was just so angry, he still killed him anyway. And like his brother, Hanzo still killed him anyway. But his brother, then they sort of had. I love the more that complexity that I wanted in this.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Kano and Sonya. I wanted the more complexity of it. Of their storyline, just to help give you more meat on the bones. You know what I mean?
And that's why I'm disappointed that they use Melina in this, because when we do eventually get Katana, we're not going to get that sister relationship anymore. Exactly. And the whole complexity of her being a literal clone mutant kind of thing, where she's, part I'm trying to remember the name of the species, Baraka's species, and part
we may still see some of these characters again, because even Shang Tsung said it.
But they killed off Melina, so it's like now we don't get that sister relationship anymore. Yeah. So
we may not get that, but we still may see them again, because even Shang Tsung said, and if you know the lore, death is just another portal. Because technically they've gone now to the Nether Realm, where Shinnok is controlling the Nether Realm with Quan Chi. And then we can get Revenants back as Revenants.
Yeah.
So
and then Sub-Zero is destined to come back as Noob Saibot.
Oh yeah, and I'm looking forward to that shit.
But I'm also looking forward to seeing Sub-Zero's brother. That was always my favorite character growing up. I dressed up as him for Halloween one year. Had the scar. I think it was my mother's lipstick. I made the scar on my face. And I shot a wad of paper instead of ice at people as they opened the door. I thought it was cool.
That was really
cool. I did always love Sub-Zero's brother, the second Sub-Zero. So he's a good guy. He's a hero. So
I'm kind of sad that they wasted Cabal, because I feel like they were establishing him. They've got a really good actor playing him, and I thought his performance was really fun. And it's such an interesting character, especially with his backstory being involved with the Black Dragon clan and whatnot, and his relationship with Kano. But they bring him in the third act to turn Kano, and it's you're basically fulfilling the same role as you had with Kano earlier in the film. So it's kind of telling that Kano's gonna die, but then he also dies. It's you burn through this awesome character. Like, I don't care about the other two generals that they, Reiko and the vampire girl.
Yeah.
I know they're canon characters, but they're nobody to me. But like, I feel like Melina and Cabal were very much wasted, and I think that there's so much potential for story there that they kind of can't do now, unfortunately. And even when they're revenants, they're sort of like mindlessly controlled kind of thing. They're not really themselves. I mean, they are to a degree, but it's like it's not the same dynamic as when they're actually living characters. Sure. Goro, I don't have as much problem with him kind of wasting, because he's like, as much as like he's an interesting character in that, you know, he was a tough boss to fight when you fought him for the first time because he had so much health. As an actual character, there's not much to him besides he looks really cool. So
I'm just glad they introduced him, so that way you can introduce the Shokan clan from Outworld, because I agree. I'm glad he was just, you know, there and he fought someone and he died.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad they did that anyway, just so we can have now, maybe if we get a sequel, you get to more with Shiva, which is to me more of a way more dynamic character than Goro was.
Well, I also think that there's a lot more to Outworld sort of politics that are very interesting. I'm very sad that they wasted Kotal Khan in a like picture from the past kind of thing.
Yeah,
because him being the successor to Shao Kahn.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a whole sort of like politics thing and like the warring tribes kind of thing, being sort of united, kind of.
Kotal Khan, what?
Kotal Khan, he's the successor of Shao Kahn after they kill Shao Kahn.
See, I stopped paying attention to the games after Mortal Kombat, after they rebooted it with Mortal Kombat. So Armageddon was my last sort of game. But I will say, guys, according to IGN, in the original timeline, the original continuity, Quan Chi or Sub-Zero was killed Scorpion, but then Quan Chi killed Scorpion's family and convinced him that Sub-Zero did it.
But it's still Sub-Zero doing it, and it's still that part is.
But it's not Sub-Zero doing it. He didn't kill Scorpion's family. He killed Scorpion.
That's a retcon. It was originally Sub-Zero, and then it goes back to actually being Sub-Zero. In several different iterations, it's Sub-Zero that kills his family because it's a conflict between the two clans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's the clan thing that's the important part of this, and like, I don't care if Quan Chi's part of it. It's still like, I don't know. I still love that part. I'm gonna defend it, and I think that you're wrong on it. So
so probably the best thing besides the fight scenes, I hated how they're edited, but the fight scenes were great. But the fatalities to me were just. I think we can all. I probably all agree, and we probably each have our favorites. For me, Kung Lao had the greatest fatality. That was so sick. It was awesome, and I did even love how they, even though I was sad Kung Lao died.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool seeing Shang Tsung's, you know, taking somebody's soul. That was pretty cool as well.
Didn't see him shapeshift though.
No, but I mean, hopefully they'll save that. Here's the thing I'm hoping for. Like, moving forward, if this becomes a success enough that they're going to do a sequel, I feel like they need to get a new director. Nothing against this director. I just feel like this was his first directorial debut. They need somebody a little more experience under their belts. Definitely give them more of a budget, because that way you can maybe hire some better actors. I wouldn't say replace any of them by any means or anything like that. Hopefully they'll get better in time. But you know what I mean? Just like introduce some other people into it, but then also give them more of a budget for CGI, because the CGI was great, but give them more money for the budget so they can include even more CGI, because they were very picky and choosy of what they chose to really make great CGI looking, because there was a huge difference between the Sub-Zero icing that looked amazing and every time it was in it, you can tell they spent a lot of time on it, versus something like Melina's mouth. You know what I mean? Like, there was a clear pick and choose, but if you give them more of a budget, they can really harp in on that a lot more. You know what I mean? So like I say, hopefully if we get a sequel, you know, there's more of that. And I think they have enough Easter eggs to help, you know, more stuff moving forward. But I feel like they did miss the mark on, you know, now that Kano's dead, because that's like one of the Sonya Blade's biggest rivals, and they didn't really treat it as such, you know, in the film. It's just more somebody she knew because he had a marking, but also because he's a criminal warlord. But you know, there's
I mean, they
more.
Clearly had, like, they weren't rivals in that she was after him for revenge, and I'm kind of glad they eschewed the whole revenge thing, because I feel like revenge plots are very tired. So I like that they gave her another reason to have a conflict with him. But I do think that there was still a relationship and conflict between them. Like he definitely liked to pick on her and definitely liked to like center her out kind of thing. So that said, Sonya's not a character with a lot to do outside of fighting Kano. And she's kind of like a tacked on character most of the time. Like they literally put her in because, oh, we don't have a female. Okay, here's a token female. And it's like, if they're going to put Sonya in, give her more to do, give her a different story, give her something new.
And that's where I wanted to continue on there, because in this movie they kind of did it where, yeah, we're special forces, but really they're just two people who are retired military who were special forces who are now just trying to find this thing. I loved in the show, and this kind of goes back to what Ryan's saying about they need armies to back them up, because in the games they are a U.S. special forces, like they're part of an organization, part of the government, and they have plenty of troops at their disposal, money. I wish that would have been here to kind of give you that sense that, you know, the government sort of knows about it and they're in charge of help protecting Earthrealm. Oh, you know.
And that's a plot later on with Johnny Cage leading sort of the next generation. So Sonya's kid and Jax's kid and a whole bunch of other young characters as a special force for fighting in Mortal Kombat and whatnot, like fighting Shao Kahn's forces, because like part of the impetus is that they're just going to ignore the tournament anyway and invade regardless. So we need to be ready.
But that's why I wish they would have done that here instead of just having them, you know, two people in a basement sort of thing to have money and, you know, some money and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I just wish that was more there. Like I said, there were some things they missed the mark and there's some things they did amazing on. I didn't mind Raiden as sort of the character that sits there and guides. He's always been sort of been that way, but I feel like in the next movie he would definitely we'll see him in action. And like I said, I found myself really enjoying myself. I feel like Sub-Zero was a great boss monster, a great boss fighter, and I loved the actor did really well of feeling that menace without really even saying much, and the presence of him was really there well throughout the whole movie. And so
Scorpion was so well done. Like the costume design on them was amazing.
Kung Lao's costume was amazing. Like I said, and Liu Kang's was very stuck to the original games.
Black, white, and red.
Even like Raiden's, it all looked, like I said, there's a lot of stuff to love here. And like I said, there's more. I feel like it's a good stepping stone. They can take the criticisms and help change them for the sequel and make it better. Like I said, this was way better than the first two. I feel like even though the first one will still hold a place in my heart, it always will. I'll still go always back, watch and enjoy it for what it was. But I will say I would easily watch this and find more enjoyment out of it than the other ones.
That was an interesting journey this week when I was doing preparation for this movie, rewatching the old ones.
Watching the second one?
The second one's terrible, but the first one really does not hold up as much as I hoped it would. It's better than the second one. It's better than the second one, but there's a lot of problems in that movie with plotting, with performance, with oh my god, the effects in CGI are painful.
Oh, yeah.
It's
interesting to see Reptile.
The one thing that I was impressed with how much it holds up and is better than I remember is the Goro costume.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was stop motion, and no, it's a costume, and it's it
was legit.
Wow, that's really well done.
Yeah, and Goro looked good in the CG here, and I loved Reptile's CG was awesome.
It's interesting to show them back to back. You know, the two Reptiles. But
even
there's another wasted character. I wish we would have gotten to see Reptile in his human form. Of course, that goes back to the fact that Reptile, Sub-Zero, and Scorpion were literally just done because they could use the same actors with the same and just change the color palette. So there's yellow ninja, green ninja, blue ninja.
Well, the green ninja's literally because they wanted another character, so they literally just put the blue character and the yellow character together. Yeah. And in fact, if you fight Reptile in the original game, he's a secret character, which is another thing I love about the original games was that there were secret characters. Like, that was
the original did that with Jade too, because Jade was just another version. Originally,
Jade, Noobside Bot, Smoke were all
Katana.
Yeah,
the original Jade was the actress of Katana in blackface, which would never happen today. Like they recolored her skin to be black, and so. But no, Reptile was just so much like Sub-Zero that he would actually freeze you, but instead of
Well, that's because it's literally it's the two characters put together. Like his move sets were the same as the two characters. They just picked different ones from the two of them and put them together. In the second one, they gave him his own sort of move sets and whatnot, but he still does like his teleport and like the freezing, and like it's later on that he gets the acid spit and
One thing I
all
wish
that
they would have
stuff.
done too, like I
The
keep
reptile's also a character without a lot of actual character, unless you're going to do the whole search for his species kind of thing and his like utter devotion to Shang Tsung. There's not much to do with him, so I'm kind of glad that he's just sort of a one-off character. Yes, I wish he kind of ended up in his human form, but it's like that's not what he actually is. That's just him replicating humans to hide among us. So I'm kind of fine with the depiction that they did. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, I liked how they did it in this movie too. I loved how Reptile looked and how he was. One thing I wish I said we're kind of nipping here, but it's things that I feel like could have been done to make it even more better than it was. I feel like they basically gave the idea that Shang Tsung is the ruler of Outworld. Like they made it seem as such, which Shao Kahn is the ruler of Outworld. I wish they would have done is like made it seem like he was to the audience, but then like have Melina be there and be like, you know, kind of keeping him on course essentially, even though she's there to help serve Shang Tsung. She'd like throw a line in there, you know, do your part. Don't forget who you or like report to. That's the right word. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
don't forget the master you serve.
Yeah, don't forget the master you serve or something like that, kind of hinting at Shao Kahn and then showing the statue. I'm like, ooh, you know, kind of giving those breadcrumbs a little bit better to moving on to the future. Kind of like this with Shinnok's amulet. I thought that was just a perfect little Easter egg to help move forward, possibly to bring in later on.
I do think that they dropped the ball on establishing what Outworld is and why it's a threat.
Exactly.
Like the only time we see Outworld is just that throne sort of like rock outcropping, and it's like, are you kidding me that you're not like Outworld is like a visually fascinating like
and
hellscape.
Who would sit there? Who would?
And it's like, well, I mean,
walk out to my throne in the middle of.
Well, I mean, that's a throwback to the original games where it's like they do sit in like ridiculous places, and it's like absurd locations that you know that they live in, and it's like, but like Outworld is a fascinating world, and there's a lot of like deep history and whatnot, and like the only thing we get to see is that it's a cool outcropping, but it's like that's the only location we get to see except for like a few sort of like arenas that you send guys to just magically. It's like, give me more of that. Give me more of like, again, there's so much complicated politics involved in the motivations of certain characters, why they're there, what they're doing, just in Outworld alone. And it's like, tease it, but can we go there in the next one, and can we develop that a little bit more and show just like what is at stake kind of thing, because I feel like the stakes were not clear in this one, and that is my biggest complaint.
So let's go ahead and wrap up our thoughts for each. We'll kind of go Rob, and I'll start off. Overall, I still had a hell of a good time. The pacing was still there really well. I thought it paced itself really well. The fight scenes, the fatalities, they were all great. I really loved. To me, one of the best things was explaining how with the Arcana that they're actually this is stuff that's been granted to them, other than by the elder gods. Other than some people just have it because like they're just the chosen ones. Like having the mark gives you that power from the elder gods, and I love the brutalities of it all, the fatalities. I am sad that some characters died, but we might see them again in another realm. But again, this was, I think, a good stepping stone, a good step in the right direction. Hopefully it gets enough traction. It will get a sequel, financially and through reactions to the crowd, from the crowd. And hopefully we get something even better. But I found myself really watching this. I even watched it a second time and still found myself having a great time. So yeah. Ryan, what were your overall thoughts and think moving forward?
I mean, to me, the film is just kind of forgettable. It has a lot of plot holes. It has characters I don't care about, and it's just kind of retreading a lot of the same ground because it is a reboot, without just kind of retreading a lot of the same ground without getting into a lot of the important stuff. It's trying to do something new by not going to the tournament, and having it take place, in another setting. But to me, it's skipping past what's important, which is at least at first the tournament, and then and it's also just kind of retreading a lot of the same stuff that goes on with a lot of the same ground. So that's what it is to me. And that's something, to be fair, I was always that was my thought process from the beginning. Like that's how I went into the film. That's
fair enough. James?
I love this. I fully acknowledge that there's problems. I think Ryan is being way too cynical about it, but that tends to be kind of his role in this little trio. Is
Devil's advocate.
Sure. Sometimes I think he can't see the forest for the trees on some things, but it's his review. He can rate it how he wants. I disagree. I think that this, while it had some problems and had some fundamental problems, I think that there's enough other good meat there that it's well worth a watch, because you're there for the fight scenes, you're there for the fatalities, you're there to see these colorful characters brought to life, and it did very well at bringing these characters to life. I love that they made Scorpion a far more complex character, even though he was in it for a very short period of time, and I'm fine with that because it allowed other characters to get a little more time. I do think that there's a little too much character in terms of like how many people are there, but like I don't know, I love everyone. Most of the people who are there, I love. Again, the fatalities were a lot of fun. The scenery was a lot of fun. God, those fight scenes were fun. And it's what I wanted out of Mortal Kombat, and it actually exceeded my expectations in terms of, this wasn't another Annihilation, because good
What could have been?
God, was that a disaster.
And I just, like I said, I really wish they would have made it, gave it a little more, like 2 hours, 10 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think would have been a help. I think it would have helped
another polish or two on the script
based on its story. But who knows? Maybe that'll happen moving forward. We never know. Either way, good start, hopefully, to a good franchise. All right, folks, that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. And more importantly, what did you think of Mortal Kombat 2021? I'm just going to put that 2021 there because you got to tell the difference. Leave your comment section below. Give us your positive, negatives, and your score out of 10. Also, if you like what you watch, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can receive more of our various content in the future. That's all we have for today. Again, I'm Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
I'm James Sheridan.
And thank you for keeping it real
with ReelTime.
Good night.